Before the SATs, I secretly took the love letter the most popular guy in school wrote to my childhood friend, Chloe, which kept them from getting together. She hated me for the rest of her life. When she found out I had a crush on her, she called me pathologically jealous, manipulative, and cruel, saying she could never love someone like me. Later we both died in a car crash. Before she died, she begged me that if we could do it all over again, I wouldn't ruin her chance at happiness with him. Her wish was granted. This time around I didn't take the letter. And then, to get into the same college as him, she intentionally bombed the multiple choice section of her science exams. After the SAT scores were released, Chloe and Leo started dating. At the graduation party, the story of her romantic gesture, of sacrificing her science score for love spread like wildfire, earning her the title of the ultimate romantic. I sat in the dark corner, holding my glass, watching the two of them surrounded by a crowd in the center of the room, and took a small sip of my juice. My friend Mark, sitting next to me, was completely baffled. Is she insane? Throwing away her entire future with her own hands, all for some uncertain future with Leo? That's right, this time she chose Leo over her future. In our last life, I took that letter before the SATs to help her choose her future, and all I got in return was a lifetime of her hatred. After she found out I had a crush on her, she told me with utter disgust, "Ethan, I have no interest in someone as pathologically jealous and manipulative as you. Your feelings for me are disgusting." The truth is, I didn't keep the letter from her forever. I gave it back to her the night our exams ended. But when she took the letter to Leo, he turned her down. "Chloe, our scores are worlds apart. We're not going to be at the same college, so how could we be together? A long-distance relationship for 4 years. I need a girlfriend who can be with me whenever I want. Can you do that?" Devastated, Chloe came back and shot me a cold glare. The next day, her parents rushed over, telling me Chloe was planning to change her college applications and begging me to talk some sense into her. I wasn't surprised, but before I could even say a word to her, she fixed her gaze on me and sneered. "What, stealing the letter once wasn't enough for you, Ethan? Are you here to ruin my life a second time?" We were standing in a windy stairwell, and though it was a bright, sunny day, I felt a chill. I looked down at her, dejected and frustrated, and said only one thing, "Chloe, it took you 12 years of hard work to get here." In the end, after her parents threatened to harm themselves, Chloe gave up on changing her college choice, and she didn't get to be with Leo. From that day on, I was the villain who had kept her and Leo apart, the target of her anger every time she dwelled on what could have been. Until the very end, she was still blaming me. In the weak, blood and metal inside the car, she rasped out a final plea. "If we get another chance, Ethan, I'm begging you, don't be so arrogant and meddle with our destiny again." So when I came back, I did as she wished. I didn't take the letter before the SATs. Chloe saw the letter. She saw that Leo liked her too, but was worried their academic gap was too wide for them to have a future, which was why he'd been hesitant. So she burned her bridges, leaving herself no way out. She threw the science section of the exam. Her score was over 100 points lower than in our first life. In the end, she successfully closed the gap with Leo, and they started their relationship. After a few drinks, someone brought me up, their tone wistful. I always thought Chloe would end up with Ethan. They were childhood friends, and they were equals in every way. But Chloe herself quickly shut it down, probably worried Leo would get the wrong idea. She said coolly, "We're just ordinary friends from childhood, that's all." I gave a silent smile and repeated her words in my head. Ordinary friends. Chloe wasn't wrong. We had known each other our whole lives. From the first day of school until high school graduation, we were always in the same homeroom. Other than my parents, I probably spent more time with Chloe than with anyone else. I'd seen her stay up all night just to solve one problem, and she'd seen me drag myself to an exam with a 104-degree fever. No one understood better than us just how much work went into being the effortless top students everyone saw. The day we started high school as the top 2 students from our city, Chloe pointed to the pictures of the valedictorian and salutatorian on the honor roll display. "That'll be us in 3 years, Ethan. You're confident." Behind her, the summer sunset painted the sky in fiery, brilliant colors. The air was alive with the frantic, deafening buzz of cicadas. I held my books and turned to look at her. "It's a deal, Chloe." Back then, all we saw in each other's eyes was the dream of the future, a hunger for our goals, and an absolute certainty that we would achieve them. But soon, someone else appeared in Chloe's world, Leo. In an era of high school where most of us were a mess of stress and studying, Leo was effortlessly, distractingly handsome, At the school arts festival not long after we started, Leo stood center stage in a white suit. He was like the moon, casting a soft glow that blurred everything else around him. He was the only thing anyone could see. After that night, Leo's name was on everyone's lips, and he became the first love of countless girls, Chloe included. I first noticed something was wrong when she came back from delivering papers to the class next door for our physics teacher. She sat at her desk, the tips of her ears flushed red, and stared at the same test for 4 straight study periods, having answered only a single question. On her scratch paper, which was usually covered in dense equations, 3 words stood out: Leo Anderson. She had tried to scribble it out, but the name was still perfectly clear. I heard later that when she was dropping off the papers, Leo had flirted with her. He'd been roughhousing with his friends, accidentally bumped into her, and caught her in a hug. Chloe, stunned for a second, just stiffened and said, "Watch it." Leo just grinned at her. "My bad, Miss Valedictorian." "Oh, and you're really beautiful, by the way." A chorus of whoops and hollers went up from the guys around them, and Chloe, who was always so composed and reserved, was completely flustered. Chloe and I were similar in a lot of ways. Rational, level-headed, calm as still water. Leo was the opposite, emotional, intense, like an effervescent tablet dropped into that water. A very handsome effervescent tablet, so it was no surprise to me that Chloe was drawn to him. It's like in all those teen movies and books, where the main characters are total opposites, pushing the idea that opposites attract. There are countless examples. The rich girl and guy from the wrong side of the tracks, the valedictorian and the slacker, the good girl and the bad boy. At the time, I figured that no matter how infatuated she was, she would still remember what was truly important. But for Leo, the girl who had always been so calm and rational decided to rebel. I'm not really sure how she and Leo got so close. I was so buried in my own studies that I barely had time to breathe, and most of our conversations were about problem sets, test answers, or whether we were prepared for the next exam. By the time I noticed they were spending more time together, Leo was already calling her nerd and Miss Valedictorian, and from her reactions, it was clear she was used to it. I started noticing that Chloe would disappear for half an hour during lunch every day to tutor Leo, and that she suddenly had plans every Saturday morning for events he organized. I knew she was falling for him, but that didn't mean I could afford to stop and focus on their budding romance. I kept my head down and continued to study. Then came the state physics Olympiad in our junior year. The school was holding a series of exams to select one student to represent us. For the final round, where 5 of us competed for the one spot, Chloe was a no-show. Because Leo had passed out from a fever, she took him to the hospital, and when he begged her to stay, she did, spending the entire afternoon by his side. I can't describe how I felt then. I just remember running to the hospital, finding her, and all my emotions boiling down to one confused word: Chloe. She was leaning against the wall in the hallway, her expression unreadable. She just said, "I've followed the rules my whole life. I'm allowed to rebel at least once, right?" So she threw away all those long, hard months of preparation, forgetting all the nights she'd forced herself to study through sickness. Looking at the beautiful, gentle girl in front of me, I felt a flash of unfamiliarity, and for some reason, my eyes started to sting. But I didn't say anything. But I knew this wasn't a good sign. So when she was about to face her next big choice, I made it for her. I took the love letter Leo left for her right before our final exams. Before that happened, I had already prepared myself for the fact that Chloe would probably confess to him after graduation, and they would get together. I was even ready to wish them well, but I never expected that I'd witness him leaving the letter. I had forgotten a notebook and was heading back to the classroom during an assembly for the top students. He was standing by Chloe's desk in the empty classroom, talking to his friend. The gist of their conversation was this. He had first approached Chloe as part of a bet with his friends to see if he could date the top-ranked girl in our year. But somewhere along the way, he'd actually started to like her. Still, he knew their grades were too far apart for them to get into the same college, and he didn't want to do long distance. That's why he kept insisting they were just friends, even though he knew she liked him. The letter was his way of saying he wanted to be with her and hoped they could somehow end up at the same school. Before, I would have bet my life that Chloe would never sacrifice her future for anyone or anything. But in that moment, I wasn't so sure. To prevent even the slightest chance of that happening, I went in after they left and took the letter. In the years that followed, as I faced Chloe's endless scorn, I asked myself over and over if I had made the wrong choice. I tried to reason with her once, calmly. "Chloe, even if you had seen the letter back then, what would you have done?" Would you really have thrown everything away just to be with him? She cut me off with a bitter laugh, her voice full of conviction. Yes, Ethan, I would have. I stared at her in silence for a moment, then let out a soft, hollow laugh. For the first time, I realized I really had been wrong. Completely and utterly wrong. Near the end of the party, Leo walked over to me, holding Chloe's hand. He raised his glass, a smile playing in his eyes. Ethan, you've been by Chloe's side for 18 years. Even if you're just friends, that's different from everyone else. So, your wish is the best, right? I glanced at the girl beside him. Her features relaxed in a white t-shirt, and offered a polite, smiling correction. I didn't walk with Chloe for 18 years. We just happened to be on the same path for 18 years. From now on, our paths diverge. Plenty of people have wished you happiness tonight. You don't need one more from me. I wish you both successful careers. I meant it. We all came from ordinary families. We'd all studied our hearts out to break free and build a better future. In our first life, Chloe got into an Ivy League school. She became the star pupil of the most renowned professor in the physics department, met a circle of venerable mentors, and made countless friends who shared her passion. With access to the best resources in the country, she soared in her beloved field of physics. Her name appeared again and again in academic journals, and she was a confident, articulate presence at research conferences. Her future was limitless. Her only regret, it seemed, was Leo, her first love. He was an obsession she never let go of. At the few class reunions we had, any news about him was always about who he was dating now, who he just broken up with, or some rich girl who was spending a fortune trying to win him over. The last I heard around Christmas was that he was getting married. That night, Chloe got wasted with her friends and ended up banging on my door. My parents happened to be out. The second I opened the door, she stormed in and laid into me. You must be thrilled. Aren't you, Ethan? He's getting married. I hope you're satisfied. I just stood quietly by the couch and let her vent. When she was done, I poured her a glass of water. Here, drink this. She didn't take it. To be honest, after so many years, I was tired of it all. I watched her pass out from the emotional exhaustion and alcohol, then casually draped a blanket over her. Back in my room, I got a message from Mark, who had already gotten the gossip through his vast network of friends. Apparently, Leo's fiancée is from a nouveau riche family. She saw him at a birthday party and it was love at first sight. He actually had a girlfriend at the time and turned her down at first, but she just started throwing money at him until he agreed to dump his girlfriend. I stared at the message in silence, and a sudden thought struck me. I wondered what would have happened if Chloe had actually given up her future for him. I never thought I'd find out what that other path looked like, but then I was sent back, and everything started over. Chloe finally got her wish. I watched them return to the center of the crowd, hand in hand, as everyone cheered for them to kiss. I finished my juice and turned to leave. Chloe had always imagined that even if she went to the same college as Leo, she could still achieve just as much through her own abilities. In reality, no one could know for sure how it would turn out, but I was waiting to see Chloe. This time around, nothing changed except for Chloe's choice. I still got the same score and was accepted into the mathematics program at the same university as before. During the entire summer before we left for college, Chloe and I didn't see each other once. She was on a graduation trip with Leo. I got a summer job tutoring junior high kids. Occasionally, I'd run to Chloe's parents, and I could see the strange smiles they gave me and the new gray hairs sprouting from their heads. I figured they would never understand why their brilliant, hard-working daughter, who had never ranked below third, had suddenly choked on her SATs. They were so worried about her. They did everything they could to cheer her up, putting on brave faces and encouraging her to go travel and take her mind off things. For a moment, I couldn't decide what would be worse for them, learning the truth or living in ignorance forever. But seeing them, I couldn't help but feel a knot of sadness in my stomach. After my own parents, they were the adults who had known me the longest, who had watched me grow up. For a long time, because my parents worked late, I had lunch at Chloe's house. Her mom always made my favorite sweet and sour ribs. She knew exactly how I liked my food, and because I was a few days younger than Chloe, she'd always tell her to look out for me at school and make sure nobody picked on me. Chloe would respond with a serious expression, a slice of watermelon in her hand. Don't worry, I won't let anyone bully him. I was mild-mannered and a good student, so I got along with everyone just fine. But Chloe, with her cool and reserved nature, was different from the other bubbly, outgoing girls our age, and she was often left out, but she never cared because she had me. I always thought we'd walk the same path forever. I never expected her to turn away. The next time I saw her was at the Amtrak station on the day we left for college. Last time we'd been heading to the same city. This time I was going to Boston, while she and Leo were heading to a school in Florida. In the crowded waiting area, she was sitting with Leo. As I walked past, I saw they were watching some TikTok relationship guru analyze the 10 signs your girlfriend truly loves you. She would nod along to whatever he said about it. She was tanner and thinner, probably from spending 2 months outdoors. She had a new tattoo of Leo's initials on her arm, and was wearing a t-shirt that matched his. This version of her was slowly becoming a stranger to the Chloe I remembered. She must have felt my gaze because she looked up. Our eyes met across a row of seats. I met her look directly and gave a small, polite smile as a greeting. She froze for a second, then instinctively shifted her tattooed arm out of sight. When Leo turned to ask her something, she quickly looked away from me and said something to him. I could read her lips. It's nothing. Just then my train was called. As I lined up and went through the gate, I could feel a pair of eyes fixed on my back. I knew who they were, but I didn't look back. Once I found my seat on the train, I saw I had an iMessage from Chloe. Seeing her name pop up after months of silence felt surreal. This silence would probably become our new normal, until one day, some ordinary exchange would become the last conversation we ever had. I snapped out of it and read her new message. It was short. Ethan, I wish you a successful career too. Of course I would have a successful career. I was heading to a new stage of my life, about to see a much bigger world. I would be surrounded by the brightest minds from across the country, entering a completely different league. Here, hardworking and talented people were a dime a dozen. Humble, brilliant people were everywhere you looked. And once I was out of the bubble of high school, I realized that Leo wasn't even that special. His good looks were just a filter, magnified because everyone else around him was too busy chasing their dreams to shine. Now, with everyone shedding their high school personas and pursuing their passions, everyone was a star in their own right. After that, I dove into my major, discussing projects with professors and classmates, and joining all sorts of academic competitions. I also volunteered for a teaching program in rural Appalachia, took up painting, and ended up drawing portraits for every stray cat and dog on campus, giving each of them a name. Every time I went home for break, I always seemed to miss her, and I spent Christmases with my grandparents, so in 4 years we never once crossed paths. We finally saw each other again at a high school reunion, 4 years later. 4 years can change a lot. The awkward teenagers we once were had become poised young adults, talking about our future plans, the competitions we'd won, and the job offers we received. They all came from top universities, armed with impressive awards. They hadn't even graduated yet, but their futures were already bright. I was the last to arrive, thanks to traffic. The moment I walked in, I was warmly pulled into the middle of a conversation, and since we all had so much in common, I fit right in. As I was catching up with everyone, a friend pointed at me and feigned annoyance. You guys have no idea. Sophomore year, our universities had a joint debate tournament, and I had the bad luck of going up against Ethan. His logic was a fortress. He completely dismantled our arguments. So much for old school camaraderie. Ha! I just smiled at her. You weren't easy on me. She wasn't done teasing me. I never would have guessed it, Ethan. You were always so quiet and gentle in high school. But on that debate stage, you were ruthless, all cold logic, pressing every advantage. I have to ask, are you like that when you argue with your girlfriend? That got a laugh from the crowd. Then, someone seemed to remember something and turned to Chloe. Hey, where's Leo? Our ultimate romantic. Didn't the campus king come with you? It was only then that I noticed Chloe, sitting silently in the corner of the room. She had changed a lot too, just like the rest of us. But the unique blend of humility and confidence that used to shine in her eyes was gone. It's hard to describe. She was so quiet and reserved, but now she seemed out of place, like an outsider who didn't belong. The same people who had once called her the ultimate romantic, with such envy, were now young adults who had been exposed to better opportunities and a wider world. When they brought it up now, the tone was different, tinged with a subtle mockery, as if they were talking about a joke. After all, she used to be the queen of this very crowd. Now she couldn't even participate in their conversations. Mark sighed quietly behind me, his drink in hand. I guess reality isn't like the movies. In the movies, a 4 years later title card usually means the heroine has made a triumphant comeback. But in reality, the Chloe of today wasn't more beautiful or more successful. She had fallen behind everyone else in the room. After all, success isn't just about hard work. the platform you're on, the resources you have, your network, your talent, your opportunities, your environment, they all matter. And so, the Chloe who had been a rising star in the world of physics in our first life was now a nobody. I wasn't surprised. When the question was directed at her, Chloe froze for a second, then her eyes drifted towards me. She finally spoke, her voice calm. We broke up. A few days after the reunion, Mark came over to share the gossip he dug up about Chloe and Leo. Apparently, soon after they started college, Leo had molded her into his perfect girlfriend. She learned how to take his pictures, edit them, pick out his sneakers, and even got into fights with other girls over him. I remembered seeing it on Facebook back then. Chloe, who had only ever shared articles about physics, suddenly started posting photos and videos of Leo every couple of days. I thought at the time that true love really could change a person. But once the honeymoon phase was over, things got wacky. Chloe started trying to focus on her classes, while Leo was busy with social events and meeting new people. They started to argue. Leo complained that she was too busy with her own projects to spend time with him, constantly bugging her to come watch him play basketball when she was trying to study. And Chloe started getting angry about how close he was with other girls. The small disagreements piled up until they were no longer speaking. Mark got more worked up as he told the story, his voice laced with a bitter anger. So much for true love. How much of it was ever real? Once the novelty wore off, the problems just kept growing. They were both meeting new, more interesting people, and their entire relationship was built on this massive sacrifice she'd made. It was a ticking time bomb just waiting for her fuse. So when a rich, beautiful girl started pursuing Leo, he became more and more unhappy with Chloe. After all, Chloe's main appeal had been her status as the top student. But in college, grades weren't the only thing that mattered. As their relationship faded and she felt his subtle contempt, Chloe finally broke down and brought up the fact that she had thrown her exams for him. His response was pure mockery. For me, Chloe, that was your choice, wasn't it? Don't try to pin the blame on me just because you regret it now. After that, there was no going back. They broke up soon after, and Leo immediately started dating the rich girl. And so, the legendary love story of the campus king, the valedictorian, and the sacrifice score came to a close. I deflated to a magazine, offering a lazy reply to Mark's passionate monologue. Oh really? He was quiet for a moment, then let out a soft, almost inaudible sigh. Honestly, as someone who was her classmate for 6 years, I'm just so disappointed. It's such a waste. She could have at least taken the test properly and then decided on the college after seeing her scores. Why did she have to burn her bridges so completely? I wonder if she regrets it now. The great love she sacrificed her future for only lasted 4 years. I smiled, my voice calm and steady. It was her choice. Regret it or not, she's the only one who has to live with the consequences. But in our first life, faced with her day in, day out hatred, I truly did come to regret my decision. Back then, we ended up in the same city for grad school and work, both in academia, so our paths inevitably crossed. And whenever we were back in our hometown, we had to maintain a semblance of civility for our parents' sake. But every time we met, she would greet me with nothing but cold, cutting remarks. I think her hatred for me peaked the day she found out I'd had a crush on her. I've kept a journal since I was a kid, and since I spent more time with Chloe than anyone, she was in it more than anyone. I wrote about the time we went hiking and she helped me home after I sprained my ankle, the time I overslept and she stood with me during detention, the time she'd share her textbook when I forgot mine. We spent weekends at the library together, represented our school at competitions, comforted each other when our grades slipped, and argued for hours over a single math problem. Everything between us was made up of these small, everyday moments. There was never any big, dramatic event, which is probably why I didn't realize I was falling for her at first. It wasn't until that day she pointed to the honor roll and asked if I was confident that I finally understood. Looking back, my feelings for her were written between the lines of every single journal entry. I loved her drive, the way she fought for her dreams. I loved the way her eyes lit up when she tackled a difficult problem. I loved how, whenever I felt like giving up, she would look at me with that serious gaze and ask, "So, is this where you give up, Ethan?" So that night, for the very first time, I wrote in my journal, "I like Chloe. I'm in love with Chloe." But then Leo came along and got closer to her. I barely knew him. Chloe was our only connection, so I only mentioned him once in my journal, in a single sentence. Chloe, she's falling for Leo. After the incident with the letter, things between us grew more and more strained. Every argument chipped away at my feelings for her. Just as my love for her had grown quietly over time, It faded away just as quietly. I never thought she'd find out, but one day, my mom asked her to come over and help assemble a new bookshelf, and she found my journal. To this day, I can still clearly remember the mocking look in her eyes as she held it up. Her voice was ice. "So you like me?" I looked at the journal in her hand, paused for a second, and then admitted it. "Yes, I used to." My calmness must have provoked her, because she suddenly threw the journal at me, her voice filled with rage. "And that's why you took the letter?" The hardcover scraped my cheek, stung. In that exact moment, I realized I wasn't in love with her anymore. Seeing my past feelings, which she had just tossed aside so carelessly, I felt nothing, no sadness at all. I just picked the journal up off the floor, dusted it off, and apologized to her sincerely. "I'm sorry, Chloe. I shouldn't have taken the letter. I shouldn't have gotten in the way of your destiny. And I shouldn't have liked you without permission." She still wasn't satisfied. She scoffed, turned, and walked away, leaving me with words I would never forget. Pathologically jealous, manipulative, and cruel. Honestly, even though I liked her then, I valued our friendship, our partnership, far more than any shallow crush. That's why my reason for taking the letter was never about keeping her and Leo apart. I just wanted her to take her exams with a clear head, to get the score she had earned over 12 years of hard work. All I did was delay her choice by a few days. I was never jealous of Leo. I've always known you can't force feelings. If she had ended up with him, I would have wished them well, and I would have continued on my own path. My life didn't depend on being with Chloe. Now it felt like the mistake of our past life had been corrected. We were both on the paths we were meant to be on. Even though I didn't take the letter this time, I didn't go out of my way to avoid Chloe, either. At least, up until the SATs, everything was the same as before. But after that, we spent 4 years in completely different worlds. So at the reunion, from the moment I arrived until I left, we didn't say a single word to each other. This growing distance didn't really affect me, so I made no effort to bridge the gap. Not until her mother was hospitalized. My mom dragged me along to visit her. I sat in the still-smelling room and listened to our mother's chat for a while. I stepped out to take a call, and on my way back, I saw Chloe standing by the planters outside. She was wearing a black jacket. A look of deep exhaustion and frustration etched on her face. A lit cigarette was pinched between her fingers. The expression was so familiar it made me pause. It was the same look she'd had in our first life whenever she hit a wall in her research, or when she was desperately trying and failing to get Leo back. Back then, even at the height of her success, she was still working tirelessly behind the scenes. The path of an academic is a hard and lonely one. As for Leo, Chloe had actually reached out to him after she made a name for herself, and they did reconnect for a while. But by then, her entire life, her network, and her friends were all in Cambridge, and she spent most of her time in the lab. Compared to the other women pursuing him, women with more money and free time, she didn't stand much of a chance. In the end, after 6 months of her trying, Leo turned her down for good, making a clean exit from her life. He became that one unattainable first love, forever out of reach, and I was forever branded as the villain who had ruined her one chance at happiness. In her mind, if only they had gone to the same college, if they had been together all along, things would have turned out differently. Looking at her now, I didn't know why she wore that same expression. The moment our eyes met, she quickly stubbed out her cigarette. She stood up and walked over to me, her voice raspy from the smoke. I didn't get a chance to say hi at the reunion. "You've changed a lot, Ethan. You look great, so successful." She paused, then added as if ashamed, "I was so immature back then, saying we were just ordinary friends. I was just so worried he did the wrong idea and it would mess things up between us. It was childish of me." I listened quietly until she was finished, then gave her a calm, easy smile. "It's fine, Chloe. We are ordinary friends. What else would we be?" Her expression froze for a second before falling. She looked out at the fading sunset and gave a self-deprecating laugh, her voice full of regret. "You know, I've thought about it a million times, what my life would be like now if I had never seen that letter." I followed her train of thought, my tone casual. "That's impossible. The letter was left for you. There's no way you wouldn't have seen it." She suddenly turned to look at me. "But what if someone had taken it?" I froze for a second. Before I could answer, she asked another question. "Ethan, if you had seen it, would you have taken it?" I studied her face, searching for something in her eyes, but found nothing. I calmly shook my head. "No, I wouldn't have taken it." We looked away from each other in silence. Then she suddenly smiled, as if a great weight had been lifted. and repeated, as if relieved, "That's good, that's good." Then she said, "After we broke up, I kept having this recurring dream. In the dream, you took the letter before our exams, and I never got together with him, and I hated you for the rest of my life. And in the end, we died in a car crash that was my fault." The feeling of the warm blood, it felt so real, like it actually happened. I just grunted in response and started to head back to the room. I said gently, "It was just a dream. Don't worry about it." But I knew it was real. The crash happened on the day of Leo's wedding. Before that, we'd been invited back to our high school for an alumni day. Our old homeroom teacher asked us to film a video for the current students, a sort of "where are they now" piece with the theme, "still on the journey." So I ended up in Chloe's car as we drove along the planned route for filming. We were following the script. I sat in the passenger seat, fiddling with the camera equipment and talking to her about camera angles. It was the first time since high school that we'd been together without any tension. The shoot went well. On the drive back, I leaned against the window in silence, just watching the scenery go by. Then her phone rang. She answered it on speakerphone out of habit. The next second, Leo's clear voice filled the car. "Chloe, it's my wedding today. I forgot to send you an invitation, but we've known each other for so long. We're friends. I'll text you the time and place." The call ended, and the car was silent. I was just about to tell her to pull over so I could get a taxi when she suddenly made a sharp U-turn. I knew she was going to go, but she never made it, because a second later we were hit by a semi-truck. The feeling of everything inside me being crushed was excruciating, but after the pain went numb, all I felt was relief. Before I lost consciousness, I heard Chloe weakly call my name a few times, and then came her plea, if we could do it all over again, please don't ruin her chance with Leo. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the first few weeks of my freshman year of high school. I didn't know what to make of her "that's good" or her recurring dream, but it didn't matter anymore. The next time I saw Chloe was the day her mom was discharged from the hospital. I was there to drop off some soup my mom had made. I stayed and chatted with her mom for a while, listening to her reminisce. She pulled out an old photo album and picked up a picture of me and Chloe after we'd won a middle school science fair. Time flies, doesn't it? I remember when your mom and I were in the same maternity ward. You were born just 3 days after Chloe, and just like that, 20-something years have gone by. You're still the same sweet boy you always were, Ethan. Chloe's dad adored you. He'd hold you and you just sit there so quietly, not making a peep, just smiling. When you got a little older, you and Chloe were joined at the hip. All of us parents used to joke that you two would end up getting married. I gave a polite smile and played along. "Mrs. Davis, that was just kid stuff. You can't take it seriously." She patted my hand and sighed. "It's Chloe who's not so lucky. The gap between you two has just gotten so wide. She's not in your league anymore." I smiled gently, wanting to correct her way of thinking. "Mrs. Davis, it's not about being in someone's league. What matters is whether two people are on the same path." She must have misunderstood me, because she said, "I heard Chloe is studying for the GREs. She's applying to the graduate program at the school she originally wanted to go to, the one in Boston where you are. Maybe when she gets there." I interrupted her gently. "Mrs. Davis, I'm going abroad for my PhD, and I have a girlfriend. I just haven't had a chance to tell my parents yet." Just then, Chloe walked in and went to the kitchen sink to wash her hands. We were sitting on the living room couch. I don't know if she heard me, but she stood there at the sink, her back to me, perfectly still. She didn't move for a long time. After a few seconds of silence, Chloe's mom, probably trying to break the tension, asked about my girlfriend. I smiled and told her how we met. "She's in my program. We met at an academic competition. She's brilliant but kind, incredibly disciplined but humble. She's in a direct PhD program, wins a national fellowship every year, has won countless awards, and on top of all that, she plays the drums." I pulled out my phone and showed her a picture of her presenting at a conference. After her mom looked at the photo, I said, "She's the person I love, and she's on the same path as me." The conversation ended there. On the way home, for some reason, I thought of Chloe standing at the sink, her sleeve rolled up. I remembered seeing the faint scars on her forearm, from where the tattoo had been removed. For a second, it felt like time was folding in on itself. The name on her scratch paper, scribbled out but still visible, had been the beginning of her story with Leo. Now the faded scar on her arm was the sign of its end. That sudden, intense rush of teenage hormones had finally receded like the tide. And with that, the entanglement between Chloe and me was more or less over. I admit for a while, I was curious to see what fate awaited her on the path she had chosen. I wanted to see how she could possibly reach the heights she had in our first life. Now that every path upward was crowded with competitors, I wondered how her family, who had invested more than a decade of their lives into her education, could possibly support her starting all over again. I have to admit, a part of me wanted to see her fail on this new path, just to prove that what I did in our first life was right. But I also knew that I had been wrong. There's a line in Dickens' The Mystery of Edwin Drood: the best of all politeness is to mind your own business. Once you meddle, you become responsible for the outcome. So this time I stayed in my own lane. I didn't interfere with a single one of Chloe's choices. In our first life, she regretted not ending up with Leo. I don't know if, in this life, she regrets the 21 multiple choice questions she threw away. But the funny thing about fate is that there's never a perfect choice. No matter what path you take, you'll always have regrets. The important thing is to live with the consequences of your choices. And now, I no longer had any interest in how Chloe's life would turn out. Life is too long for that. Whether she managed to stage a comeback and return to her former glory, or simply faded into mediocrity, it had nothing to do with me. I stopped looking back and kept moving forward. For the 3 years I was in England, my girlfriend and I were long distance. Mark would call and tease me. "Ethan, you're gone for 3 years. Aren't you worried things will fizzle out with your girlfriend?" I replied calmly, while rushing to finish a paper. "We may not be in the same place, but we're running towards the same finish line. Our souls are only getting closer." He made a suggestive sound, then changed the subject as if he just remembered something. "Remember Leo? He got married to that nouveau riche girl who fell for him. She threw a ton of money at him. The wedding was a huge spectacle. They invited a bunch of people from high school. Everyone was so jealous. Too bad that not even 2 years later, she got bored and found someone new, younger, more handsome, more talented, and just like before, she started throwing money at him. Leo found out he was being cheated on, made a huge scene, and she filed for divorce. He's refusing to sign the papers, so now they're just stuck in a messy legal battle." I listened absently, realizing that Leo's face was already starting to fade in my memory. I remembered he was handsome, but that was about it. Even when he was dating Chloe, he never seemed special to me. I never saw him as a rival. We were from different worlds. Mark must have sensed my boredom, because he dropped the subject and said, "Chloe took the GREs twice. Both times, she missed the cutoff for her program by a fraction of a point. Talk about bad luck." I finally submitted my paper, let out a long sigh, and replied without much thought, "Oh, well, I wish her luck." Not long after that, I got a notification for an iMessage that was immediately deleted. It was from Chloe. I didn't ask what it was. Not until I moved back to the States. My friends threw me a welcome home party, and Chloe was there. She asked me if I'd seen her message. I shook my head and said it was the middle of the night for me. I must have been asleep. She gave a bitter smile and explained, "I had a weird, fragmented dream and got it mixed up with reality for a second. As long as I didn't bother you." I kept a friendly smile on my face, realizing I just told a clumsy lie. Her middle of the night was my middle of the day, but it didn't matter. Just like the deleted message, which I was sure had been, "Ethan, did you used to like me?" The answer no longer mattered. What matters is that now, I'm on my own path, heading further than ever, and the woman I love is waiting for me up ahead. I watched her turn and walk away after one last deep look at me, her back looking thin and lonely. My girlfriend walked over, holding a small plate with a cupcake, and quietly asked me who that was. I pulled my eyes away from Chloe's retreating back, took my girlfriend's hand, and smiled. Just an ordinary friend from childhood.